guidelines. Good morning. I'm honored to have Ms. Pat Gilday, a very highly experienced realtor. Yes, and Maureen Inglesby is supposed to be here. Another honor to have her as well. She called me this morning.
Excited?
I am. I want to take a temperature of the room, not COVID temperature. Temperature of what do you want to know? What questions do you have about appraisals? Like QA, right? Questions on appraisals. What questions do you have? We're going to talk about the concerns, challenges. Yes, Joe.
I know there's a difference, if you remember you told me, between a bank appraisal and a real estate appraisal. Right? What the banks do to appraise their properties.
Well, that's a different term. They're called hybrids. They're called different terms for those. Appraisals and appraisals and appraisal by a certified appraiser, licensed through the state board in Harrisburg. And they have to, if you want to get an appraiser to hire them, banks hire all certified appraisers. But there's three classifications of appraisals. Okay, yes, Pat?
Can realtors do appraisals?
Yes.
I'm on the
And what's next? Realtors do appraisals. Don't be shy. I don't care if it's, it could be any kind of question out there at all. Okay, we go.
How do we learn the value of different things during an appraisal?
Excuse me?
How do we understand the value of different parts of the house during an appraisal?
Understanding,
Like the different value, like say this kitchen is being renovated, or this kitchen is half.
understanding the grid.
Yeah,
You mean the adjustments?
Yeah.
That's what that's called, the grid adjustments. That's a good question.
Kind of along those lines as well. When you're doing an appraisal in a certain market and then doing it in a different market, let's say, for example, the same appraisal, the same place, how does that fluctuate as far as what you're putting on?
What kind of market you're referring to?
Well, let's say
Because we have so many different markets, and what are values driven by? How do you determine the value of a property? Where do you start as a realtor, as an appraiser, anybody?
location.
What's the number one, Reed? What's the number one? I'll hear the question before we answer that. Which one?
Oh, I was just, I think last night in the class that we had, they were saying that the appraisals are based off of the surrounding houses that just sold.
Comps.
Yeah, based on the comps, not like on the house itself necessarily. It is on the house, but it starts from the comps, right? Is that correct?
All right, we'll talk about comps.
Sorry.
How to select comps too, maybe. Yes.
What happens if it doesn't appraise?
Yeah, low appraisals, that's a great one. Low appraisals, we're gonna talk about the appeal process, if anybody's interested. Because we had realtors in here that appealed and won, some of them did not. How do you formulate a letter? What do you do? What's the tips, tricks, and all that? How about what questions about the appraisal business and what challenges are you experiencing? They're probably all tied in together. Low appraisals, comp selection. What drives values? You have to go back to the neighborhood talk.
I would say for any location.
Okay, well, narrow it down a little bit more.
Schools?
School districts drive values, number one. Too many realtors say, I'm going to do a 5-mile radius of my comps. No, wrong. You're going to go to the 3 different school districts. Ridge Street Media is Ridge Street Media. Wallingford Swarthmore is Wallingford Swarthmore. They have their own markets. All school districts drive values. We know that. Marble Newtown, right? So you see what the difference is. And then the tax base also. Taxes have an effect, right? What is an appraisal? It's a distinct area of specialization in the world of real estate market analysis. It provides a clear understanding about the market's response to a subject property, and licensees must be aware of the fundamental principles of valuation in order to complete an accurate and effective CMA. So sorry. That makes sense? You have to know the basics of an appraisal and how it's done to complete an accurate and effective CMA. And this assists sellers to arrive at, here we we go, a reasonable asking price, and buyer clients to make appropriate offers based on current market conditions. Furthermore, the knowledge of the appraisal process allows the licensee to recognize an unacceptable appraisal. I was in Harrisburg just 2 weeks ago with Dominic and Christina. We all three of us are directors of PAR, and finally back in session, back live again. And it's amazing the experience of all these legislators and realtors across the state, how knowledgeable they are, how great it is to be surrounded by them, to understand and gain expertise and knowledge from them. And one of the gentlemen showed me an appraiser I got in new construction development in Bucks County out there. The appraiser used photographs for comps, okay, other new construction homes that sold. He used the subject property, the front of the house. I've never seen this before. It doesn't make sense. So the comp's supposed to be a photograph of the actual sold comp. He used a subject property picture, and the pictures were all messed up. So I mean, you have to go through the entire appraisal report to recognize, something that's not has errors. An appraisal is an estimate or opinion of value based on supportable evidence. And a report is an opinion of market value given to a lender or a client with detailed instructions. We know there's a new rules now about BPOs, if anybody has heard. The Real Estate Commission issues new regulations regarding BPO, broker's price opinion. Realtors are allowed to do it, but there are guidelines and there are rules. And BPOs are usually assigned from banks before the property is going to foreclosure, pre-foreclosure. And they want to make sure the house is still stable and sitting, and make sure you ride by and do your valuation in it. Realtors are not allowed to do BPOs for years and years and years. Now they're letting realtors do BPOs for banks and for other reasons. It's similar, but the estimate and the probable sale price is going to be more of a range, like a CMA. The main difference is the minimum required content for pricing and for uses. CMA has no required content beyond the required disclaimer. We all know that you have to put language in every single CMA. And what's that language? Anybody know the language of, it's not word for word. This analysis has not been performed by an appraiser under USPAP guidelines, so sellers know that you're not doing an appraisal for them, you're doing a CMA. And that language is in Great MLS. If you use your CMA through Great, it automatically, but I don't use Great for CMAs, I use Toolkit, and I have language already in the cover letter on every CMA Toolkit. And a CMA must be related to an actual or sale or lease transaction, while BPO can be done in a set of 4 situations that are not necessarily transaction related. So the law dictates that a BPO can only be used for certain purposes. It also contains a list of prohibitions, and it may not be used for determining property value for originating a mortgage loan, equity loan, or credit or refinance. That's done by a certified appraiser. In connection with eminent domain, tax appeals, bankruptcy, and so on. Divorce, an equitable distribution, any court proceeding, or any distribution of an estate. Okay? Otherwise, a full appraisal has to be done. Without there are other there's no gray area. It's either it's on the list or it's not. So I don't know, anybody ever had a ton of BPO yet or had classes? There's a class you can take for that purpose. If anybody is interested. How do you put, okay, let's talk about markets and neighborhoods again. Mostly school districts. And I'm going to also have some forms. If anybody has any questions on any of the documents and forms that we use relating to the appraisal I'm talking about. Do you know we have a new appraisal contingency addendum now? Everybody see it? I have it up here, I'll talk about it. because of the crazy market we're in, trying to be more competitive. So what appraisers and realtors should know on the basic principles of value? What are the basic principles, and what do all these mean? And you should actually go to a property in a neighborhood, you see a house where it's 3,000 square feet, all the other houses are much larger or smaller, doesn't conform to the neighborhood. And there's reasons for all that. You have to be aware of, even on doing a CMA we're talking about. I mean, anticipation, like, that's just knowing the market in advance. Like, you're on first base trying to steal second, you have to anticipate the pitcher's going to move over to you or not. If you're on a football field, you have to anticipate quarterback and his plays. I mean, it can be going on and on in all sports, right? So what does that mean? It's, its value is created by the expectation of benefits that will be realized in the future. Certain benefits will be realized in the future. The value of a home is affected if there's rumors that an adjacent property next door is going to be converted to commercial use, maybe a daycare center, maybe traffic, parking, just things you think about. I mean, if you know, and you should know the zoning, what's happening around that property. If you can look up easy online. If there's any zoning application permits taken, and that's another thing we'll talk about. People say, well, I finished the basement, I put a room on, I put a deck on, all these improvements that an owner made, and the appraiser goes out and will use that finished basement, will use the addition, the deck, but guess what? If there's no permits to put for that work, he will not value that property up where you should be seeing that. Do you know that? That's a realtors do not know that if you don't have permits pulled for all the work you did in this property, an appraiser has to search and find out. It's easily find it online. We're called the township. And it's on where? What other document do you see that located on? When you list a property and sell a property.
Are you sure that all appraisers do that?
I can't speak for all appraisers, but I can tell you right now, the majority of them, if it's a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan, the underwriter will kick it back if they see any issues that they can find out that permits weren't pulled. Where else do you see this information? What document? When you buy and sell real estate, what document? Pat? Thank you very much, Holly. The seller disclosure statement has questions on it, right? Has permits been pulled? Yes, no, or unknown?
I've always had the question, what happens in that case? I mean, the lender pulls back, fine, how do you fix it?
Okay, guess you
Tear it
fix
out, start again.
Tear it down, get a permit, or you pay the money that you should have paid, and it's probably gonna be double or triple that amount.
And then they inspect.
So I'll be aware of that. Most appraisers will know that and have to determine. I mean, we know owners don't pull permits to do work all the time. It's not a good thing. Especially if the deck falls down, somebody gets sued. It had Aston, there was a graduation party with 20 kids, and the deck collapsed. Somebody died, I think. It was a horrible situation. We should have, I guess, 20 or 30 people on, I don't know, on a party. But those are the kind of things you have to look after. Vacant properties too, and declining. So change, that's no physical or economic condition remains constant. Real estate is subject to natural phenomena, tornadoes, fires, routine wear and tear of the elements. And the real estate business is also subject to market demands, like any other business. So an appraiser and realtor should be knowledgeable about the past and, in fact, predictable future effects. I mean, it's hard to really predict what's going to happen in the future. We know, a lot of us have been around in this market. This market's going to change. This is not going to be where we're at now with sellers market getting overvalue on their properties. People are paying overvalue for these properties. Competition is an interaction of supply and demand. That's the problem we're having now. We're having a supply and demand issue. We're not having anything else but a supply and demand issue right now. And what's a normal market? How many months in the market is it normal? What's a seller's market? Who knows the answer? I know Pat does. We'll should just be silent for a second. We'll let somebody else answer this. What is a neutral? It's called neutral market. Normal. We're not in a normal market, right? But a seller's market. And what's the difference between that and a buyer's market? I can say 3 to 4 months is a neutral market. Anything that's gonna sit on the market for more than 4 months is a buyer's market. Anything that sells less than 3 months is a seller's market. About 3 days, not 3 months or so. 3 hours. 3 hours, you know. Contribution. Under the principle of contribution, the value of any part of a property is measured by its effect on the value of the whole parcel. Installing an in-ground pool, $50,000 in-ground pool, waterfall, nice jets, hot tub, all that good stuff, or a greenhouse, or a private bowling alley. I sold a house, Dominic and I sold a house about 20 years ago, 25. In Ambler, it was a 5-unit converted back to a single family. They didn't have a bowling alley, they had a movie theater inside with full bath, hot tubs, and it was an amazing property. So you do all this work to this property. What's the end result? Is it worth what you're putting into it? Not exactly. Of course not. So that's contribution. Highest and best use of a property. You know, most residential houses are highest and best use. It's a vacant piece of ground. The appraiser must determine what's the highest and best use to be built on that site. Must be legally permitted, economically and financially feasible, physically possible, and the most profitable. How about increasing and diminishing returns? The addition of improvements onto land and structures, only to the asset's maximum value. If you keep putting money into the property, right, no longer, you keep spending money in improvements, and no longer affect the property's value. As long as money is spent on improvements that produces an increase in income or value, the law of increasing returns applies. It's pretty easy. You keep putting money in the property, you say to yourself, I'm sorry, the law of diminishing returns just hit you. You know, so what are you talking about? It's the law of diminishing returns. You put too much money in the property, you're not going to get it back out. You know that. Or you put in new kitchen, new bathrooms, and there's certain things we know that adds value. That's the law of increasing returns. Plottage is basically merging, consolidating 2 lots together into one. If you merge 2 lots into one, you can build a bigger house, bigger building envelope, and more value, higher value. That's what plottage is. And this is an interesting one, regression and progression. So, in general, the value of a higher quality property, really expensive, higher quality property, is adversely affected by the presence of lower quality properties. And that's known as regression. So, in a neighborhood of modest homes, for example, a structure that is larger, better maintained, or more luxurious would tend to be valued at the same range as those less lavish homes, right? That's the principle of progression. That big house is sitting in that neighborhood, and there's 7 different style of houses in the street. That's not going to give you maximum value when you have 7. We have it happen in Brookhaven, Aston, even some parts of media. You see these areas where there's splits, multi, colonial, ranch, bi-level, contemporary, all these different types of houses. Why? Why did it happen? Well, you got a piece of ground 30 years ago, you built the kind of house you wanted, right? Somebody else had a big ground, they built a different kind of house. And you're going to try to get $500,000, like, you know, the highest prices of a development that a builder built. Same size house, not going to be worth as much. People cannot understand that. They think their house is worth as high as Camelot or wherever the development, right, the builders have built. All 2-story colonials, all the same square footage, cookie cutter houses. I have problems with a couple listings now. People think their house is worth more than it is, but it's not. And they don't understand that. Substitution is just the sales comparison approach. You're substituting. Every house is not identical. Each occupies its own geographic location. That's why you take your subject property, you take your comps, and you would do your adjustments. And every house you try to find a comp for, you should be using comps. I mean, appraisers take 20, 30 sales. I've done classes like this. We even had a class how to select the best comps, and you have to do square footage has to be right around what you're comping, your own subject property, within 200 or 300 square feet low and high. It's called bracketing. That's another appraisal term called bracketing. Underwriters want to see that. House sold for $550, they're gonna see sales of $500 and $600. House is 3,500 square feet, they wanna see a house of 3,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet. That's bracketing, makes sense? When you do your comp search, when you're doing an MLS, it's exactly what you should do. When I search through CMA, I always search square footage only, otherwise 80 to 100 properties show up. You wanna narrow it down to 20, 30, then you narrow it down from there based on the condition of that house compared to your subject property. You can get pretty close. And an appraiser who doesn't do any adjustments, that means that house is pretty identical to the subject property. And that's the value they're going to use. They don't average them out the comps. It's never done. You take one of them, or two of them, and give the most weight. Okay, give the most weight on those one or two comps. Pretty similar to the subject. Supply and demand, we know what that is, right? So we don't have to talk really about supply and demand. Okay, back to the questions. Can realtors do appraisals? No, they cannot. They have to be licensed. Licensed as an appraiser and as a real estate broker. And also licensed as an instructor for the state. Understanding the grid analysis. Well, we all saw a copy of an appraisal, right? We all know what they are. Does everybody know in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, appraisers have to use condition and quality ratings, and there's what's quality ratings condition? You ever see C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and C6 on an appraisal? Some of you new folks don't know what that is yet, but when you see an appraisal to come in, what's that? C means condition, and on the appraisal report, a lot of appraisers will just use C2 or 3, because C1 means the improvements have been recently constructed and not been occupied. That's new construction, is C1. The entire structure and components are new, and there's no physical depreciation. C2 features no deferred maintenance. I have copies I can email to anybody. These ratings, I have copies of some things here. And no required repairs. No repairs needed for C2. All building components are new or have been recently repaired, refinished, or rehabbed. Outdated components and finishes have been updated. All the kitchens, bathrooms, everything's been updated and replaced. And that's been recently renovated, of course. So C3, the improvements are well maintained and features limited physical depreciation due to normal wear and tear. Some components, but not every major building component, may be updated or recently rehabbed. The structure's still been maintained. Appraisers will use C3 for most appraisals today, unless you're really doing a flip. Okay? Or the owner, you told the owner to go in there and rehab the house, they had the money to do it. Like estate sales, I have somebody I just put in, did with $15,000 in, we're making $45,000 more for the estate for the family. And they said, okay, they didn't have to. They would have never made that money, they didn't do the improvements, and not that much either. Refinished all the hardwood floors, put carpeting in, put some fixtures in the bathroom, and not that much money they put in. Refinished the deck. C4 is some minor deferred maintenance and no physical deterioration due. The dwelling has been maintained and repairs are minimal. In C5, everything's got deferred maintenance, you need some repairs, needs rehab, updating. That's like something that's all original condition you're walking towards. C6 is, it has substantial damage with major deficiencies and defects. Probably have to do a tear down maybe on some of them. Okay. Then you have quality ratings, and I could be in that Q1, Q2, Q3, 4, 5, and 6 on them. Comp selection. Okay. When you go into a property, before you even go in, I want to see if I can go in the courthouse here. And I'm not sure if some of you may know this exists now. Let me get an open window. Let me find. So make sure you sign up for the Spooky Legal Hotline. It's Tuesday, October 7th. Pat, you missed it. You can sign up for this, it's gonna be a free webinar, and it talks about haunted houses, animal infestations, dead bodies, lots of them, and a lot of other things. So if you wanna sign up, Pat, I know you're paid, almost everybody is here, I believe. It's a realtor paid dues, so you can sign up. Let me go to this, we're going to Delaware County Courthouse website. So you can, where you take notes, follow along. When I do an appraisal, or even a CMA, first thing I go is here. And I need to find out some information about the property. Public access. Everybody's been here before? Some of you new folks have not. Google Delaware County Courthouse website, and here it is. Go to real estate system, real estate tax system. Continue the tax records. So who has a property, I'll pick anyone here, let's pick a property, whether it's local media, any addresses, give me an address, I'll do a.
106 East Franklin Street.
106?
East Franklin Street.
I'll just put Franklin. But you don't want to put east, I don't think it'll make that. Let's see. Okay, here it is. So all the information about the property. The courthouse records, the owner, any taxes they owe. Yes, the teller companies go here. They check and see if there's any county tax, township tax owed. School tax is a school tax collector, a different source for that. But more importantly, you can print this out, and I like this part, this is where I go, sketch. So now I have a sketch of the building before I go out. I can do my appraisal and do my work before I go to the house. I do measure the house though, because the courthouse records are wrong. This is cool. This is just the first floor. So when you go to the house and you're looking up the top to the second floor could be jetted out a little bit, could be bumped out. So you measure from the street, from the ground, around the house, the second floor, that's what I do. And now I go in the house and I can do all my work, take pictures, and do a lot of note taking. I take legal pads and take a couple pages of notes for an appraisal. And the CMA do the same thing. You need to know everything about that house. I mean, what kind of appliances they have. People don't do that. Everything, detailed, any stains, anything needed, you know. But this is something, so you just have this, now you can print this out. You can, I have a software program that I use for appraisals, and I sketch out the property from this, because this is all done by satellite. When they just reassessed all of Delaware County last year, everybody had been reassessed. And people came to the courthouse, and they were all upset. And I was on the board. I was the chairman of a 3-panel board, because we were out of work for 4 months. So I applied for a job at the courthouse, and they hired me. And we had 13,000 people appealing their taxes, and half of them shouldn't have been there, because they didn't realize the old assessed value was 21 years old, 1999. And that common level ratio means that your house is valued at 56.5% of your total value of your house. You hear what I said? Your house is not worth. Now the new assessment is based on 100%. So if you're assessed at 150, you're not, house is not worth what it should be worth almost 300, right around 300. So you're good. People came in and said, you're doubling my taxes, you're tripling my taxes. I said, no, you went down. You actually went down, and you're still sitting here like this, you know. And you only got 3 minutes, Steve, to hear your case, because we have so many people coming in all day. And somebody got really upset, and the sheriff's gonna come take somebody out. It wasn't on my committee, it's another hearing board. People don't understand, because when they get the mail about how the tax assessment, the new process works, they're like some realtors who have the disease RDR, you know? They do, they just don't read what they have in their mail. So that, and now it's 100% that you're taxed. So now the school districts are going after people, you know. Only for me, there's some solicitors that were in the room that was there. And you bought a new house for $600,000 last year, and you're trying to get your taxes lowered. But all the sales in the neighborhood are probably higher than $600,000. no chance. People don't realize the values went up so high, remember, during COVID, and now that the time of appeal was not the year 2020. So, I mean, this is all, you have mapping, but always go into the courthouse and do research first. Shows you the parcel here. You can get this from MLS also. MLS is better for the parcels because it shows you when you hover around each parcel, shows you the name, when they bought it, all the more detailed information. You notice that? Do the map search instead of research. Okay. So, try this out. It's great to have. And by the way, we should be knowing we should be knowing to do this. What a search for square footage, because I mean, it's the best part. Like I said, it's only the first floor, not the second, but they show you garages, has everything in there. Even additions they put. And guess what? Oh, they had an addition, it would be here. And they know that, so they know there was a permit obtained or not. The county's not stupid. And I know John, who runs the county office. People come in and try to appeal, and they don't have everything on record. That's a problem. Think about that. That's a problem. You know? It's not on record yet. What else we have to answer? Well, comp selection, I already told everybody how to do comp selection. Are there any questions on how to find comps? And same school district, square footage, lower and high, bedrooms, baths.
Is that like
It's
your
pretty easy.
process, you go square footage?
Yeah, yes, of course, yeah. Now, if you can't find, I have a problem. Rob Fine hired me to do an appraisal. He used to work here. Really nice guy. And he has a house that he can't sell, and they wanted to list it for $75,000 over. And it was like $475,000 we're asking. There was no bites, a couple showings. Guess where it is? Castle Rock, Newtown Square. Who knows where Castle Rock is off of Westchester Park? Pat, what do you think of that neighborhood? Do you know it's windy roads,
Yeah,
it's
it's
dirt
very
roads,
small,
it's
really.
disgusting. There's houses that are falling down.
Yeah.
There's 10 different kind of houses. Speaking of conformity, I didn't even go with that slide on conformity. I'll go back to that. I have to explain to everybody what conformity means. It's a neighborhood on Westchester Pike. Go up 252 right here, make a left at 3. It's about a few miles down past the old Edgewood Country Club. They just were building new homes there. Putting $3 million homes there. And it's right past, there's new shopping centers there on the right. And movie theaters there. Yeah. And I went in there and like, this is unbelievable. And these people were comping their house, which is more than the town school district. They're comping in other parts of beautiful neighborhoods off Route 3.
I thought that was Rose Media.
You know, it is Rose Street Media, isn't it? I'm sorry, you're right. It is Rose Street Media. That's another, that makes it even more difficult.
Right.
Because there's no comps in Rose Street Media like Castle Rock. Nothing. And he was having a problem to sell. I said, don't worry. And they even paid me, the seller even paid me for my appraisal, and I did it, and I appraised it for $385 to $390. Seriously. They had it up for $475 or $480. And I gotta check and see if it sold. That's a good question. Because sellers, if they're having a problem with pricing, we said that maybe we should call somebody as a certified appraiser, and that will really put you out of the picture. The appraiser's not competing for anything, just doing the job, pricing it right, and that helps you alleviate pricing issues. Get the money out though. I have a woman in the main line. She works for Berkshire. She always calls me. She can't price $1 million homes, 1.2, 800,000, and she struggles a little bit. She hires me. I do it, and everything's great. And I'm realistic. The market right now, somebody said the price a little lower and did bids and bids. People are pricing it 100,000 over, 50,000 over, and see what's going to happen. You notice that things have slowed down just a little bit. Pat, has it slowed down a little bit in the market with offers and showings and everything? Let me go back to that slide again. Conformity. All the houses conform to the neighborhood. All the houses are built almost the same time. same size, square footage. Builders, why do you think builders build all the same house, style houses? Unless it's a 55 in every community, they will build all ranchers, but you notice there are some capes that don't put a second floor bedroom for somebody to stay over, put a second floor bedroom or bath in the 55 in every community. It's really important, conformity. You have a neighborhood that's, same houses, they're all gonna sell. That Castle Rock neighborhood, the house, even the house across the street, when I did the appraisal, the deck was falling down, it was ugly. Who wants to buy a house looking at that in the front door? And then here's another thing, I never saw this, the backyard was all rocks, giant boulders in the yard. And you walk out your deck, and the kids would break their head open because there's a giant rock in the back of the house, and the whole neighborhood is full of, it's a rock quarry. They built this neighborhood on top of a rock quarry. And I bet she has high levels of radon, because that's easier for radon to see through, because the Reading area, they had readings of over 80 over 100.0, because it was all rock quarries in that area up there. So, low appraisals, let's talk about that. What happens on a low appraisal? This is the conditions of C of the surgeon. That's the appraisal, then that's next. We're going to talk about that next. What do you do in a low appraisal? Who has happened to have a low appraisal and now you're struggling on what's the next thing we should do? Pat, since you have experience here,
I
have you had an appeal? Have you had a low appraisal on a couple of your listings?
I have had two. One I appealed,
You have it
and
there.
because the agent, the appraiser
Thanks very much, you.
didn't talk about the house, what it actually was, so I won that one. And then the other one, I had them change lenders and have a new appraisal, and we got that one corrected.
Well, there's a woman named Kate Vale who came here to the lunch and learn. She's a very successful team in Philadelphia, and she gave us a copy of a letter that she used. If you want to see it, I can show you on the screen. I can give anybody a copy of it, in case you need some help. Also, like Jeanette, also appealed. He used like a 4 or 5 page cover letter, and you got to really read the entire appraisal report, cover to cover, and see if you can spot any errors.
Yeah, find the errors.
It's not at all unheard for an appraisal report to miss a bedroom, under report the home square footage, 90 would have found the square footage. 2-story colonial is easy, second floor is the same size as the first floor. Row home, simple, twins, same size, second floor as the first floor. The wrong comps when it comes time for the appraiser to pick the properties to use as benchmarks. Whether or not you find errors in the details about the home you're buying or selling, checking with your agent. You are the agent, whether the comps used by the appraiser were reasonable from a different neighborhood. So I had to, by the way, that Castle Rock story I didn't finish. I couldn't find many comps in Rose Street, so I had to go to the next best school district, which was Marlborough Town. And that's what the appraisers will do that. Only, it's the last resort if there's no sales in this school district where the subject property is located. You can't go to an undesirable school district that's a comparable district.
Mark,
Yes,
how do you feel about realtors giving you comps?
I think you should, because every appraiser I met this year and last year, I gave them all the comps. They kind of knew me anyway, but they got the value. I never had a problem yet, knock on wood. Pinocchio. But you have to give them comps. I know one guy, that guy I met in Harrisburg, I said, did you meet the appraiser? No, I'm here, I could not meet him. That's a problem. He'll use anything he wants. Do you notice appraisers are going in and out of the house in 5 minutes? They're taking like 10 minutes, they're done. And you think I'll be here for half hour, 45 minutes? Because they have all the work done prior to getting there. They know all the square footage, they know all the market data. The comps are probably selected already, but I haven't seen the house, which I would not like. So absolutely you give them, but you can't give them bigger houses.
Nope.
Smaller ones are okay. If it's the same value, you gotta use the same properties. Question is the same school district. So look for errors, and also, there's more sales, out there that the appraiser's not gonna use. See, these appraisers are coming from all different areas, because they're on a list from the AMC. What's the AMC? Appraisal Management Company. And they have a list of all the appraisers they're gonna do the next assignment. And they're coming from all these other areas, and they're coming down here from Huntington Valley, Berks County, all these other areas. They have access to the MLS, they better. I'd ask them if you know they're coming from a different area. I always ask them, where's your office, where's your market, Where's your office, or they work at their house mostly. They're traveling a long distance, and they don't want to give the appraisal up and go to the next appraiser in line. They're just gonna, he needs to work, and they're doing so many at once. Every year there's about 5,000 to 6,000 job openings in the appraisal business. Probably the average age is older than me, and I'm old. 60s. Okay, no, the average age of appraiser is 68 in Pennsylvania. And they don't hardly get your license. You're starting to soften it up. They have to do it. The State Board of Certified Appraisers. Because there's going to be hybrids coming in now. That's what I'm going to talk about next, after we finish this. So get a second opinion if you have a lower appraisal coming in. Renegotiate. If there's bad comps or errors in there, and the appraiser ignores your request to revise your report, escalate your request to the lender itself. It's important to be working with an expert agent and mortgage pro with a great reputation. If they believe strongly in your case, they'll be able to plead it to the underwriter and request a second appraisal to be done. Now, who pays for that second appraisal? Your buyer. You will have to pay for that second appraisal. And the idea is a second appraisal backs up your arguments, listing the correct property details, more accurate comps. The lender is more likely to exercise its discretion to deem the first one a dud and go with the second one. If that doesn't work, then you renegotiate. Low appraisals disappoint everyone around the table. The sellers have leeway, equity in their bank, agrees, unless it's a short sale, they have no equity in a short sale, right? They might agree to bring the price down to the appraised value, or near enough the buyer feels good putting some extra cash into the deal. Some buyers refuse to do this on general principle, as they feel they're overpaying for the property. Do you feel they're overpaying for the property in today's market? Somebody bid on the house here immediately, somebody lost it, they bid 50,000 over. Somebody got it, bid 100,000 over. Paid cash. There's a house on the corner from Springhaven Country Club. It's an old time, I don't know the name of the owners, old farm, and they wanted to sell the property. They put it up for 800,000, and somebody came in at 1.1 million, paid cash for it, and no inspections, and it has asbestos, it has wood, it has, who knows, lead-based paint issues, a lot of issues. I was talking to some of the neighbors who know the owner. So negotiate if you have to, and this appraisal addendum we're going to talk about will help your case. Pay the difference or split the difference. You're going to renegotiate. Who wants to pay for a house is not, the bank does not appraise it for what you're paying for it, right? You're getting buyers, push back on that. Now, I have the appraisal addendum I'm going to bring up. Here it is. And this is new. When you see the red, see why it's changing colors? I have back to back. What's that? Okay. Pass these around. Thanks very much. I'll see if I can knock everybody. This is the new appraisal addendum. Let's talk about it. Who have used this yet? Have you? Okay, good. And you don't gotta say anybody's name or anything, but they choose option 1 or 2. They choose option 1 or 2, but hold on, let's talk about this. The old one, let me talk about that first. The old one has, contingency period, which is 30 days, if not specified, from the execution date of the agreement. And within the contingency period, the buyer may obtain an appraisal of the property from a PA certified appraiser. If the buyer is obtaining financing, the appraisal should be performed by a PA certified appraiser, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's A and B. If the appraisal is not completed and the buyer accepts the property, the appraisal of the sale price, they go to settlement. Or B, they terminate or enter into a mutually agreed agreement with the seller. That's the old one. There wasn't that much language to that. Now they expanded this to read. Let's just make sure we clear though before we go any further. This form is not to be used for any FHA or VA financing. They have their own rules, and you're not allowed to do this on FHA or VA financing, so you can't use this form at all. Conventional financing. The appraised value of the property must be equal to or higher than the purchase price, or blank, which is the minimum appraisal value. Purchase price if not specified. Normally with the purchase price in there, right? Whichever is lower. So the bank's going to take the value of an appraisal, and they see the agreement of sale. So the agreement of sale is $450, and the appraisal is $425. They're not going to take $450. They're using $425, the lower of the two. Just so you know. Within the contingency period, the buyer may obtain the appraisal of the property from a certified appraiser, and if the buyer is obtaining financing, it should be performed whenever that day. And if it's paying cash for the property, the appraisal still must be performed by a certified appraiser. Now there's two options here. Option one, if the house appraises for the price, they agree to go to settlement, everything's fine. If they're not satisfied, doesn't appraise for the sale price, we give a copy to the seller. Buyer either terminates it, gets the money back, or they'll enter into a mutually acceptable written agreement with the seller. If the buyer doesn't terminate or enter an agreement, they still waive this. They have to make sure they do all this with the time period. It's called the contingency period. And then option two, if the terms of paragraph 1 are satisfied, the buyer agrees to accept, go to settlement. Buyer further agrees to complete settlement at the purchase price by any of the following or a combination thereof at the buyer's sole discretion. A, provide funds, put up some cash at settlement. B, adjust the loan amount stated in the mortgage contingency paragraph of the agreement of sale, or adjust the LTV ratio in the agreement of sale.
And then there's this.
Okay, thank you. Buyer's election of any of the options shall prevail over like terms of the mortgage or financing contingency paragraph of the agreement of sale. All the terms remain unchanged. Any fees result from the change in loan terms will be paid by the buyer. All this makes sense to everybody? Is it too confusing? Is it pretty easy to understand? Okay. It's the same language that's in here.
Yeah, that's the one that's that short one that Dominic created.
Did he? Before this came out, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's pretty.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna make sure everybody understands something. When you have a buyer who's buying a house and they sold their house already, it's under contract, and you're gonna settlement soon, and you're making an offer on a new house, this is very critical. You don't use the settlement of other property contingency addendum, SOP. You could be in trouble. Do you know that? Realtors do not do that. I'm not saying this office, other offices will not use that form because the language in the mortgage contingency clause will supersede and say, oh, we got to prove of a mortgage, but we need the proceeds from the house I'm living in to buy the next house, right? So they got to potentially lose your deposit monies if you don't use Form SOP attached to the agreement of sale they offer on their new house, because the language in the addendum is the same language like this. It supersedes the mortgage contingency, so now the seller can't cancel the contract and accept another offer maybe if they don't get approved in time. But once a buyer's approved of a mortgage, they have so many days to clear conditions. How many days is that? 7 days to clear conditions. And one of the conditions is gonna say you need to have proceeds from the sale of your house. They don't have cash to buy the new house, right? They have two mortgages. One mortgage they're paying on now, which is gonna sell them, and the new house they're gonna buy. That's all, just be aware, use that document, and you'll be okay. All right, that's what I gotta use, yeah. Settlement, not the sale and settlement of other property contingency, it's just a settlement. I can bring it up there now to see what it looks like.
Yeah, do that.
Let's see if I have a copy. Well, the fastest way, I'm not gonna go on command, sorry. I'm gonna go on top of it, it's faster to do that for me.
I actually haven't had that happen yet, but I'm sure somewhere down the line that's gonna happen.
It's happening all the time for me this year. I got a lot of people that wanna buy a new house, but they gotta sell their old. Now, if they have the proceeds and they can get the mortgage approval, pre-approval, without selling their house, that's the most beautiful thing you can do. I had one client that can buy first before selling their house. That's a big great idea. Have some. Then you don't have to worry about the stress of selling their house in 2-3 days and then finding a house real quick. Which should be losing offers on other properties. I have my nieces. This is my classes I teach at Wooded. I'll bring it in, no problem. PAR documents. Not sale and settlement. Settlement. This should be it. So this form is used. This sale is contingent upon the settlement of buyer's property at. Buyer's property is under an agreement of sale with settlement to take place on that date, put it, copies attached. If settlement of the buyer's property does not occur on the settlement date above, or if the buyer's agreement of sale is terminated, the seller may terminate the agreement by written notice to the buyer of the deposit money paid in the account of purchase price will be returned to the buyer according to the terms of the agreement of sale. Buyer and seller agree to extend the date by which settlement must occur until the seller terminates. Okay, here it is, number 3. The terms of this addendum change and prevail over the provisions of the mortgage contingency clause, giving the seller the right to terminate the agreement of sale. If the buyer's mortgage commitment is conditioned upon the sale and settlement, which it will be, of the buyer's settlement of the buyer's property. That's the form. There's numerous other forms like this when you have somebody wants to try to buy, they got an offer on the house, but would you take my offer and I have to sell my house? Hey, that not be a bad idea in this market right now. I don't know if the seller will take it with multiple offers, probably not. Because they're gonna get people who already sold their house, paying cash, don't have to go through this, but when the market shifts and changes, it's gonna happen, believe me.
When is this handed over to the seller?
This is part of your package of your offer on your house.
Okay.
You're working with a buyer,
Okay.
and they already sold their house, sold it in 2-3 days. Settlement's not till December, whatever, November, and you're making an offer on a new house for them. If you don't have this, the seller can terminate the agreement of sale, because when their mortgage is gonna be approved, that condition is gonna be in there. Oh, sorry, you gotta sell your house. Oh, I did. No, you gotta make settlement of your house, not just sell it.
So I mean, you can get overlooked as an offer too with this, correct?
What do you mean, overlooked?
Well, I'm just saying, if you have another offer, me as the seller, if I have 2 offers, one has this, one doesn't,
Okay, good point. So you work for the seller and you wanna take the other offer that doesn't have this form in there?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's a good idea. Because then you're trying to fool the other agent, and then all of a sudden, you're gonna have the seller terminate. No, we don't do that.
But you're looking at their buyer's financial, so you
Yeah.
have to see where the money's coming from.
It's
So
obvious the money's coming from their house.
they have to come from
They
someplace.
don't have 200,000 cash, they have the money tied up in their house.
Understood, but I'm saying like, you're selling your house. The contingency is there, so if you don't sell your house, that drags me along as well.
Well, the buyer agent's in legal liability now because they can get sued. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. The buyer said, you didn't tell me I should use this form. You didn't tell me that by buying the other house, the seller just turned in my agreement of sale because I didn't use this form because I have my house under contract. They can take you to the board, they can take you to, who knows what they can do? To the real estate commission. Do you want that? No. And that's your, by the way, you just violated your fiduciary duties to your client, by the way. Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. You just violated all your fiduciary duties because you didn't use as a buyer agent. I'm serious. And agents are making offers. Hi, Maureen, welcome. Another very highly experienced realtor you should learn from, this Maureen Inglesby in the room. Am I right, Maureen? I was in the appraisal addendum we just talked about before you came in, and we're almost finished.
I just had that discussion with somebody today.
So, this is protecting your client's interest. I don't care what the seller thinks, they can take whatever offer they want.
Oh, I agree, and I know it's needed, I'm just saying, like, it could change your, especially in today's market, it could change, your buyer's needs, as far as winning a bid on a home.
Well, then guess what you gotta do? Guess what your job is? You're gonna explain to them and tell them the consequences if they don't use this form? And they're gonna, and you have to sign a letter and say, I understand what you explained to me, I wanna take no legal action against you as a realtor. You want them to sign that? Because you better. No buyer will probably sign that, I'm not kidding. If Dominic was here, he'd be a little upset and thinking that if you did this, he'll get a phone call. And the phone call leads. Phone call to you for 2 hours. You can't get off the phone with him then, okay? Hold on, one more thought I have he's gonna say, right? We do this all the time, him and I. Hold on, we have another idea. What if you do this? What if this happens? This market's gonna be shifting and changing, but this is people who have the house that you already sold and they're under contract, that's all. Because now, with the market that we sold, I have another offer, been waiting in the wings, I can just terminate this when they don't get the mortgage approved. And then take the next offer for 20,000 more, maybe, because they were too late. That some buyers say, "Oh, I would have bid on that house 50,000 more than that bid." You always hear that, right? Oh, it's too late, it's gone, and you use it as a backup. That's all. Can't do anything else about it. What else? Loan appraisals. Any other questions? Any other?
You may have already covered it, I'm sorry I was late, I had an emergency.
Don't
But,
worry about it. No.
I haven't seen it as much lately, but I just saw it again last night when I was going over comparables with a seller for a listing, where the agents are, all right, say they have the house for $289, and the buyer offers, the buyer that came to the listing offers $298. Right? So the listing agent is concerned that the appraiser will look at the $289 and say, "Ooh, $298 might be a little high." So they go in just before they put it in pending
I know what you're gonna say.
and change it to $299, right? Thinking that they're gonna thwart the appraiser because the appraiser's gonna go, "Oh, look, it listed for $299 and they got an offer for
Worst thing
$298, this is
a
wonderful."
realtor can do, I'm not a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac appraisers, I know appraisers, I spoke to them many times. Worst thing a listing agent can do.
Exactly, but they're
No,
doing it.
People are putting them, oh, we got 20 grand over, I would hurry up and put it over there because you.
Before you put it into pending.
You will not get that value.
And how stupid do they think the appraisers are,
No.
that they're not gonna look at the history?
No,
Because
very
don't we
good.
all look at the history
Excellent
before we
point,
do,
Maureen.
and
Excellent.
see what it was in the beginning? Well, the appraisers have, they can look up the history right on the thing. And so they're not fooling anybody, but
No.
I think that's really, really wrong. I saw it a lot in the beginning when we were so crazy. I'm not seeing it as
But
much
what you
now.
do is this, you go to meet the appraiser and you say, we had multiple offers, we had 4 or 5.
Yes.
And here's where the numbers came in at, listen, and here's some 6 comps I have for you, the same school district, same square footage, that sold for $290, $295, $300, whatever, he can adjust up to. Just because you gave him comps that are not 300, aren't gonna mean he's not gonna appraise it for that, but you better be close to that number if it's sold for $298.
I know Park came out with something, but it didn't seem to make any difference because people were still doing it, and I don't know why they thought the appraisers wouldn't do their job and look at the history, so it seems
No,
stupid.
but-
I think too, though, it may not just be for the appraiser. I think some agents are doing that to let people know that it's over asking, so if the deal falls apart, that they know that they've already gotten an offer at this higher number to help with the second offer if it comes through. I don't know, I don't do it, but I think that might be for a purpose for that too. So if
Most of
you,
the time when I call the other agent, I'll say, and they'll go, well, you know, I wanted to make sure that the appraiser, that's the wrong purpose. If that's what you're talking about, it's a possibility, yeah.
All you gotta do is print the history of the listing.
Exactly.
My God, here's where you started, and oh my God, now you're up here, oh wow, what
Yeah.
happened? It's under contract now, and the appraiser is not gonna use that, actually, it's a detriment.
I think so
It's gonna hurt
too.
your chances to get that house appraised at $298,000, $300,000.
Be honest, just do their ethical thing.
But I have guidelines for the preparation and use of that appraisal addendum, and any form that you ever use, it's online through the PAR. You should absolutely print it out, know how to fill out a document, if you don't know how to fill out, even the agreement of sale, there's guidelines on how to fill out every form, okay? Any other questions? I have one more thing I want to talk about. What's a hybrid appraisal? Who knows what a hybrid appraisal is? This is going to be popular because State Board of Certified Appraisers and USPAP are going to be doing some changes. We're doing away with the URAR form. The Uniform Residential Appraisal Report is going to go away. They're going to come to some standard form. I don't know what it is yet. Okay? But a hybrid, what's a hybrid? Anybody? It's like best of both worlds. Well,
Drive by and,
somebody's going to be sitting at their desk, the appraiser, doing his work, and somebody else is going to be going out to the property to do an inspection. Not the appraiser. But somebody who does the inspection has to be licensed as an appraiser's assistant, trainee, or another appraiser. So this is interesting because you have to streamline all the work they have, because there's so much work for the appraisers that they're really burdened, and they have to do, I don't know, 20 a week, 30 a week, and they're in your house 10 minutes. I just showed you a couple of things before you got here, but Delaware County Courthouse has all the sketch plans online, all that stuff, so it makes it easier before you even go to the property to do all your work. All right? But that's what a hybrid appraisal is. It's going to happen. I mean, they have been doing it already. I sold a house to a buyer, and the appraiser never even went to the house. He goes, I went through AVM, and I got the values through the AVM. What's an AVM? Who knows what AVM means? Automated valuation model. Very good, she's in the front row, because you know. Automated valuation model. What does that mean? It's a compilation of every property that's sold in
It's a
Pennsylvania. No, it's a compilation, because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac has all these appraisals done, and they put it in the computer system. Imagine all the houses that sold in Rose Tree Media all over, and they have it in a database. They know what the house down the street's gonna be worth, house around the corner. But the problem is, when I go to a house and they say, oh, Zillow shows my house is worth $500,000, so I guess what I say, does Zillow go in your house and smell it, look at it, like I'm here now? How do they know what the value is? It's horrible, isn't it? You gotta go inside. It's like people bought houses last year sight unseen during COVID. And then when they finally went in the house and they smelled it, they didn't want to buy it. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Your time is up. Well, I just- I'll just
Thank
stay
you very
and hang out.
much, Martha. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.